welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Bud Elliott, that's Tom Fernelli, that's Danny Cannell, who has weighed in on the Drake-Kendrick Lamar beef. I'm Chip Patterson, coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 tailgate, where they're already rocking and rolling. And yes, we are going to be getting to some of our biggest moves of the transfer portal spring window. There wasn't a ton of big seismic movement in this spring window, but certainly moves of note, and maybe the absence of seismic movement is a takeaway as well. Danny, I'm guessing, have you been spending the morning breaking down all of the weekend releases from Drake and Kendrick? Was that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, all the latest.
From the tailgate. Yeah,
definitely.
Team
you
K
got to
out
remember.
here?
I got 16 and 15-year-old at home, so I'm very up to date on all the latest. All I have to do is just ask them what's happening, and they tell me what side to get on.
So on Saturday night, where they were like, he dropped another, like just get going with each wave.
Yes.
Well, you know what he wasn't spending his morning doing? Shaving.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
So what do you?
There was some rough itch going on, beard itch last night. The dye kind of makes it a little coarser and a little bit more itchy. So like if inside, like I'm actually like, your dog, I need one of those where I have to wear like the helmet,
the cone.
Yeah. I actually do have there's going to be a scab that from scratching too much.
Just give it another few days. You'll get through. You just got to break through.
I'm going to go invest in some beard balm.
Speaking of the Drake Kendrick thing though, can we be honest about this? This is just Taylor Swift for dudes, right? Everybody really caring about any of this. That's what a lot of music is these days. It's just making a song that'll insult somebody to get attention and engagement on social media. Nobody actually, I don't know, whatever. It's all stupid to me.
I think it's sport, and sport is fun.
Yeah.
Like sport and competition. Those are two things that especially we as sports people can, obviously, and you're doing it in the middle of the playoffs. It's a good time and place.
But I mean, fans just breaking down every single part of these songs, looking for some deeper meaning. It's nah, he's just calling him short. That's really all he's doing. It's nothing. There's nothing deep to it.
Yeah, I didn't know Kendrick Lamar was only 5'5".
He is.
Yeah, he's really tiny.
I was not aware he was that short.
I mean, we spend months of a college football podcast telling you that a team that doesn't have offensive line depth is going to get chewed up over a 12-game season. So, we're all a little bit performative. Speaking of performative, the bowl season. So, interesting bit of reporting coming out of the Fiesta Summit last week. Our friend Brandon Marcello was out there, and this is the story itself, which you can check out over at cbssports.com, shows that the people who are in charge of the bowl season, like the non-college football playoff bowl games, are eyeing an expansion to the bowl schedule, which kind of had my eyes popping. But the thing that I was interested in wasn't necessarily will it or will it not expand, and the ideas of revenue sharing and trying to get opt-outs out of the game. I was a little bit more interested in the big picture here. Danny, when we're trying to imagine what the future of the college football and the college football postseason is going to look like, how do you see that? Do you see a world where you could have 50 bowl games? We got 42 right now. Back in 2000, we only had 20 some bowl games. It's that has been the expansion over the last 20, 25 years. The playoff is going to have its own expansion. How do you think we're going to wrestle what the college football postseason is going to look like moving forward?
I hate the idea of more bowl games. I mean, I thought 20 was the perfect number because their value, they're special. It's supposed to be a reward. Now we've got teams 5 and 7 playing for bowls. It was supposed to be something as a reward, but we're also not idiots. There's an opportunity to have more inventory in the sport that we know and love, and those TV network executives see that opportunity. Why wouldn't they add more?
But I don't know how much of an appetite there truly is for more bowl games, especially because it's one network is broadcasting 97% of them. So how many more do they really want filling up their inventory? But what's funny is I read Marcello's story, and you got to remember where these quotes are coming from. It's the bowl season director who, of course, they're going to want more bowl games. But what's funny is I can't remember the exact quote, but it's talking about how, there's such a hunger for expansion and we want more bowl games. And then then Marcelo writes, he's like, of course, there haven't been enough bowl eligible teams the last 3 seasons with the current amount of bowls. So we're going to add more. It's like, I'm never, if there's a bowl game on and I'm home, I'm watching it. There's no question about it. So if there are more of them, I will probably pay attention to them. But the idea that we need more bowl games is pretty ludicrous to me.
I don't have anything against Nick Carparelli, and I think that
He's a big fan of the Cover 3 podcast.
Is he really?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Like,
He's
look,
he's
I
actually
think
he's
this
Italian.
guy,
He's my cousin. So
this guy is very good at his job, and his job basically is he's advocates for the bowls. So think about it, like what's happened to bowl season recently. We have had a proposal for a G5 playoff, which would sap a good number of bowl slots. We have the advent of likely revenue sharing with the settlement of the House case. And I appreciate all y'all watching that House case video I shot, because now it's going up in terms of our VOD clip. So if you haven't watched it for the explainer on the House case, go check that out. Obviously, revenue sharing, he sees an opening to force players to play in bowl games. Now, other guys I talked to are like, I don't know. It's Nick's job to go to the Fiesta Summit and advocate for bowl games. It's Marcelo's job to interview him and obviously put other perspectives in there as well, as he did. I don't think that like your top teams that have most of your draft prospects are going to be willing to go to the mat to fight for clauses in the NIL deals that they're likely to be given out once all this NIL stuff goes in-house to force you to play in non-playoff bowl games. I can definitely see playoff games being a contentious aspect. And maybe if you're like, I don't know, give me a team that is very unlikely to make the playoff, but like they're very excited to go to a bowl and they need their star to show up for a bowl. Maybe like that level of team is willing to kind of press the issue. But if I'm a head coach and my NIL operation in-house, if we lose a player because we are insisting on a clause in a contract that says you have to play in a bowl game, a non-playoff bowl game, and he goes somewhere else that won't make him sign that clause, I'm pissed. So I don't think this solves bowl opt-outs at all. I think there is some chance because of the competitive aspect of the playoff. And of course, the messaging that we get beat with over the head by ESPN and others that only the playoff matters, not the bowls. I think there's some chance that we can force guys contractually to play in the playoff games. And not that we've had any playoff opt-outs anyway. I think there's almost zero chance that we can actually force guys to play in these non-playoff bowl games.
I was told expanding the playoff would solve bowl opt-outs anyway.
Kind of
We'll
does.
solve some of them.
Right?
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because when I am thinking about this, I not worry, but I would be concerned if I was in the position of the bowl season, because bowl season Inc. The playoff is going to start on December 20th. Like that was traditionally your LA, your LA bowl, like your New Orleans bowl, like 5 bowl games in a Saturday. And college football fans, like us, we'd be like, yes, here we go. And we actually would be talking about those games and giving you locks for those games. And with the messaging being the college football playoff is the thing that matters the most. And especially with it being these early years and it being on campus, first round games, the novelty of it. I mean, that whole window of like December 20th to December 30th, there's a lot of games that typically fall in that calendar. And I think it's going to be really hard to break through the noise of the new expanded playoff for those games to really resonate. So I definitely don't want necessarily to try and pack more bowl games into that time. I'd be more concerned about, the calendar and how you're going to be able to even resonate with the playoff stretching a month from December 20th to January 20th.
Also, even if you did try to force it, you know what? Oh, sudden onset migraine.
Yeah.
Good,
I mean, the
good
NBA's
luck.
tried to get rid of it.
Show up on MRI,
Yeah.
a couple hours later. Like hamstring, you could potentially like try to go after the kid or something, which you wouldn't because it would look really bad. But like, yeah,
the NBA has tried to get rid of rest for the past, to try to, of the optics of rest, because they used to just put it in there. He's taking the night off. Well, there's an easy way around that. It's exactly what Bud's talking about. You have a hammy, you have a groin, whatever, a sickness. You just put random something. That's exactly what the players would do that wouldn't want to play in the bowls.
Yeah, it's hilarious to me, like in the NBA. Sorry to get off topic, but Danny brought it up. players, their biggest complaint is that they're forced to play 65 games if they want to win postseason awards. It's like the players are complaining that they have to play 75% of the time. Like, imagine if we're going to work saying it's not fair that they expect me to work Monday through Friday. I should only have to show up 3 days a week if I want to get my raise.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. But yeah, it's again, this is the time of year when a lot of those decisions are being made, and something to keep an eye on as we move forward. Did anybody catch any of Washington's spring game on Friday night?
I read about it. I didn't watch any of it.
What'd you?
Yeah, I read about it.
Okay, what do we think? What are the big takeaways?
Will Rogers
Is definitely the starter.
Okay.
Neither of them look good, but Will Rogers is going to probably be your starter. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you feel any better, worse, or the same about Washington's place, sort of in their status for Jedd Fisch year one?
Like bowl team.
Bowl team.
I think it's bad. It's funny because like when I Googled Washington's spring game this weekend and I was reading up on it, it's like 80% of the headlines were about the attendance being better this year. And I'm just like, that's never a great sign for the actual spring game itself. But it's like attendance was better than last year in Jedd Fisch's first season. All right, cool.
A couple things. One, the receiver Boston got mentioned a lot, and I was kind of operating under the assumption that Hunter was going to be like the top guy there, but maybe that's going to be more of an even target share. I think a bowl game is very reasonable expectation. Maybe a bowl game. Comfortably so. So the schedule in the non-con is quite manageable. I mean, Weber State or Weber, right? Not Weber.
Weber.
Eastern Michigan. They host Washington State in the Apple Cup. They host Northwestern, and their roadies are Rutgers, Iowa, Indiana, Penn State, Oregon. So that a couple of those are really quite tough. But
no Ohio State, no Michigan.
They do get Michigan. Michigan
Okay.
comes to town, but they don't get Ohio State. I mean, they get USC and UCLA late, which I think I would prefer given the depth concerns that you might have with those teams or that I do. I think bowl game is very, very reachable.
Okay. And then a big headline from across college football over the weekend is that, we remember with Nick Saban, there was every single year a clause in his contract that would make him, within a certain percentage, if not the highest paid coach. Kirby Smart becomes college football's first $13 million coach. And so I ask, with the context being that we are going to be filling out our coach rankings ballots, do you think that Kirby Smart he has done enough to be able to occupy that Saban status of always getting the re-ups to be the most highly compensated coach in college football?
I mean, it's kind of weird that he becomes the highest coach after missing the playoff. Just talking about Georgia buying low, I think that's actually smart business. It's like if they'd won another national title, they might have had another tack on another $1 million a season there.
Is he the easy one on your ballot? Like, are you throwing Kirby at one?
Oh God, don't bring that up. We're doing that. Like that goes up next week.
Yes, I know. That's what
really?
I'm.
They haven't even sent us the ballots yet. I'm having an existential crisis because I have to write those things. And we haven't sent out the ballots yet. And those things take forever to write up. And I'm just like, I was on Jack's ass this morning. Like, dude, get those ballots out because I want to get that done ahead of time.
Jack, we need that show to be Wednesday, not Thursday, right? So
Wednesday, we will do the coach ranking show. On Monday, we might even do a little bit of like talking about our ballots. Wednesday will be more reacting to the actual rankings on cbssports.com, which include ballots from across 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports. So it is much more of a comprehensive look at it. I mean,
is this going to be the high watermark that a head coach will ever make?
Well, that's what I was interested in saying. Is this the blast of the bubble? Like, because these contracts have been going up, like it's been a chart that looks exactly like this. And to Bud's point, I know where he's going with this. Like when we start paying players, are we going to see that money reallocated? I would say yes, but I don't know. There's a lot of money to go around. If they do the cap, if they have a salary cap, does that allow them to keep paying the coaches that much? Although they can still do NIL even if there's a salary cap. So I think there might be room to grow a little bit more, but my goodness, does this seem astronomical?
It depends. Yeah, it depends what they put the cap on the rosters because I guarantee you they're going to end up putting a cap on there.
Yeah.
players have to agree to a cap, though. I mean, I know you guys know this, but for the audience at home, like you can't just be like, "There's a cap," because then they're like, "Here's an antitrust lawsuit," which you will lose. But assuming that they actually get collective bargaining, I think we'll see a coach get to 15. I don't know who it is, but I think it will be a little while before we get to 20.
Yeah,
As far as like the round numbers coming, because I could see somebody else. Like, what if Texas or Oregon wins it all this year? Like, do we think that Texas or Oregon are not going to splash the pot and get Lanning or Sark up to 15?
Right.
But 20 is probably that's going to take a while, I think.
I've always thought that coach money and player money has always existed in different buckets, right?
Yeah,
Well,
but the coach money
has,
in the
but
NFL,
will.
right? And the coach money in the NFL, the highest paid coach is making 20. The quarterbacks are making 50. And a lot of players are making 20. So I think that's where you'll see the shift potential. I think that's again what Bud's alluding to. Do we see the players get more of the pot than the coaches?
Ohio State basketball, and Tom, you can actually maybe back me up here. It seems like they're doing the thing that a lot of people and fans talk about, which is if you go cheap on the coach, you've all of a sudden got a lot of money to play with for NIL. And Ohio State's done a very good job of being able to land who they want and put together a pretty good squad for Jake Diebler in the transfer portal. I just don't know if you can do that in college football. I just think that's a much easier proposition of like, oh yeah, we'll pay the coach less because we'll have all this money here. I think the needs of a championship contending program to run that operation, as many people as you have to manage and all the ins and outs and roster construction, I think that going heavy on paying for a Kirby Smart, a Steve Sarkisian, a Dan Lanning, I would not go cheap on that in football the way that you might be able to do in basketball. Does that check out?
It's just completely, yeah, it does to a degree, but I do think that you will see, like we're talking about, it's going to happen a little bit. Will it happen to the degree you're seeing with like what Ohio State's doing? Probably not. But there's going to be some kind of balance, whether it's 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. I don't know, but you're going to start seeing it like level out a bit in the future here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, coming up on the other side, we had the transfer portal close midweek last week, a cooling off period, and things seem to be settled. So let's talk about some of the biggest moves, headlines, and takeaways from the spring window of the transfer portal. Get into that and more next.
Golf's brightest stars head to the Bluegrass State for the second major of the season. The PGA Championship, May 18th and 19th on CBS.
Brooks Koepka is currently 20-1 to win that right now. I'm just throwing that out there.
Ooh.
Brooks Koepka's also been putting better recently.
Just throwing that out there. If whoever wants to take that advice.
It's preposterous. These live guys get so mispriced.
Yep.
Watch me wearing a Greg Norman straw hat watching the PGA Championship with a card full of live guys. Let's go. All right. So we until oh my goodness, it was a wild new experience to watch courtroom decisions shatter the player movement in ways that brought us transfer portal boomerangs, players who arrived at a new school in January, and by the end of spring practice were transferred on to somewhere else. So it was a lot to wrap our heads around, but let's one more time jump into the portal. All right, DK, I'll let you get first crack at this. Either an individual player or sort of a big headline or a thought or a takeaway. What were some of the big things that stand out from this spring window?
So I had a couple. Dominic Williams, who we had just talked about last week when he made the announcement to go to from TCU to Oklahoma. That was significant for a couple reasons. One, most important position on the market. Like, kind of where does that leave the teams that wanted DTs but didn't get them, like LSU, like Texas, others who got outbid for Dominic Williams, and then what it means for Oklahoma, like their investment on the defensive side of the ball. Feel like this might have been done out of, desperation's a strong word, but we're going to the SEC. We need some beef up front that can go toe-to-toe with them. Because I think that's always been historically for Big 12 teams has been, we have the skill positions we can go toe to toe with, but it's that interior presence on the offensive and defensive lines. So I thought that one stood out for me. And just knowing the number or vicinity of the number that they offered, I think it kind of expressed that, the priority that they put on that before going to the SEC.
Do you know the number?
Pretty certain of the number. Yeah.
It was a big number.
Is it somewhere between like 690,000 and 710,000?
I actually heard higher. So I don't know if you have better intel than I do, but I think it's pretty significant. And that's where I was kind of like, man, you spend this much on a player that's a non-quarterback, like it better be impactful.
And DT2, is Dominic Williams is a great second interior defensive tackle, right? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Do you like him better than Jermaine, the Louisville kid they took? I don't know. Like he might be DT1 for them.
Yeah. That to me seems like a statement of intent. Like what's the best Brent Venables defense that you've seen? It's got 4 NFL bodies, just the build from 6 build from the defensive line out. So I definitely like that. That was definitely one of the big ones. We knew that he was going to be somebody that was coveted. That was a big get for the Sooners over the weekend. But who else from that? You've been talking about the defensive tackle market ever since the portal opened. What were some of the other big moves or developments that you saw there?
Yeah, I think just to continue with Danny's point there, the D tackle market was really the big one, because there's certain positions where there's not a guy out there in the spring window. Like there was nobody at quarterback. There was really nothing special at offensive tackle. There's a lot of like decent DBs if you needed like a DB4 or perhaps a DB5. There were some nickel guys who I thought were interesting, but I mean, Williams and Harmon were two of like the real prizes out there to me. Toya going back to UCLA is, in my opinion, a really big keep for them. I like the Barrow kid that Miami got. If you look at this, there were a lot of teams out there. I chuckled pretty hard on Friday when Harmon announced to Oregon, because that was not one of the teams that was putting a lot of smoke out there about, hey, we think we're going to land Harmon, but they just went out and did the thing. And it's an excellent troll job by Dan Lanning to go out and get a position where, did Oregon want a guy? Did they upgrade? Absolutely. Was their season going to fall apart if they did not land an impact D tackle? No. But you know what? Who has he trolled recently? USC and Dion. And both those teams really, really needed an impact guy. And there just aren't other impact guys out there to go get. So excellent trolling by Dan Lanning there. And to kneecap a conference rival in USC for sure was big. I think if you're an LSU fan, you're beside yourself.
Because you had, I know you had Dominic on campus, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. You whiffed on him. Like they didn't get to the Michigan State guys. At least Texas got the white kid from Arizona, who's not terrible, but like he's not a super impact guy. And LSU has 2 potential first-round offensive tackles, and they got a quarterback in Nussmeier who I think is going to be really good. And they still have a lot of talent at tight end and receiver. And what the hell are they doing? Are they going to run like a 2-6-3 defense this year? It's wild how badly LSU has failed in the transfer portal in back-to-back years, in my opinion. And that, like, there's a limited supply. This is the last chance to go get them, and they didn't do it.
Can we stay there for a second? Because just to remind fans, last year, if I remember correctly, the failures were like your evaluation, right? Because they had transfer portal guys and were just unplayable. Am I remembering that correctly?
And the thing is, LSU's really killing it in high school recruiting right now.
Right.
So I don't understand fully what the disconnect is there with the transfer process that they're doing, but it's definitely not working.
Maybe they're whatchamacalliting their money for high school more than they are the transfer portal.
I mean, look, after seeing Bryce Underwood 2 weekends ago, I fully understand if you're
we're tapped out. Sorry.
If you're allocating, yes, that will work.
There we go. That was the word I couldn't think of. Whatchamacalliting. That I think that worked just as well.
And there are definitely teams out there that I think kind of got stuck holding their own bag.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Colorado was making a real offer at Harmon, from what I understand. I know they offered some other guys too that they didn't get. Like somebody out there who has not signed yet is going to get overpaid.
Mhm.
Or maybe you just eat the money and you spend it next year. But I don't know what USC is going to do. I don't know what Colorado's going to do. I don't know what LSU is going to do.
Tyler Barron licking his chops. Yes.
Yeah.
One more bag.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I mean,
that was who I had as a note, was the guys that are on the market that are really good players that still aren't signed. Like, where do they end up? Like the more significant ones, Tyler Barron, I thought was one of the more obvious ones. But even like
Is
a player
Barron
like
good now?
what's
I mean,
that?
like Tennessee's NIL operation is pretty buttoned up, and they let him walk.
Right.
And then he was at LSU, committed to Ole Miss. And he was at Louisville for a little bit. Can he?
Those
play
are red
now?
flags, I think, to me as a coach. I would be like, what's happening here? Even a player like Cormani McClain, I think the market is kind of speaking volumes about what type of player he might actually be. That it's not that great for him. Who else did I have written down? Terrence Brooks from Texas on the market. Jacoby Matthews on the market. That's what Bud kind of was talking about. DBs. There's good DBs available. But I still had, like, those were kind of the other names that I saw that hadn't made a decision yet. That could still be impactful.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think, last spring, but if you're in the portal and you're not like the top name that the teams are going after right away, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're a defensive tackle right now in the portal and you haven't signed anywhere yet, and you've still got USC and LSU and all these schools who still need help, you're probably going to get paid a lot more than you would typically be, quote unquote, worth based on your performance.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So just hold out. That's
About to
my
be last
advice.
call, man.
Well,
Don't be scared. Just hold out.
Don't you think that if you're a coach, would you be concerned about dropping the huge desperation bag? I mean,
If it's a 1-year deal and I've got the money, no.
Okay.
Kind of, though, because
your locker room,
all the kids talk, right?
Yeah.
And like, Tom brought up D tackle. If you go out and you spend more money to acquire the best remaining D tackle on the market, who's actually like the DT3 on your team, and your DT1, DT2 find out that he's making significantly more than they're making, that will cause problems.
But not if I take him out to dinner. Just like, it'll calm things down. I'll be the guy. I'll order food. I'll get the Grubhub. I don't care.
Was the was Jay Toya staying at UCLA the most significant retention of the cycle?
No.
What do you think the most significant retention of the cycle was?
Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant.
Just
sorry, Texas.
Yeah, players who never even entered their name in the portal, but there was, enough smoke to consider.
They went after him. It's just they didn't land him. So it's but plenty of people were going after him, just testing the waters, seeing what would happen. Nope, not interested.
I think Notre Dame keeping their quarterback room together and Ohio State keeping their quarterback room together is also pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of
your UNC boys keeping Hampton and Rucker together to bring them back, I thought was significant, especially with the issues they have at quarterback. Like, to have a running back coming back, one of the best ones that have been, come after pretty significantly.
Oh, who's the Tulane D tackle? Let me see here.
Johnson.
It wasn't Patrick. Was it Patrick Jenkins?
That's close.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of LSU fans in the mentions were like, we're going to get two. One's a stud, and this kid we've already got backdoored. I'm like, all right, man, I don't got any inside info on that, so we'll see what happens. But he stayed. So
yeah,
that's big for Tulane.
It is easy for me to say that this is one of the biggest ones, just because of the team involved and the fact that it's easy to look at offensive players. But do you think Damian Martinez to Miami was one of the more notable moves or landings or recruiting wins for this portal cycle?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, like, he's a proven good back. We don't know the status of Mark Fletcher. Like, they haven't really said what it was. It looked like it wasn't an Achilles. So is it a Liz Frank? What's the deal there? Because, like, if you kind of read the tea leaves on a lot of these reports, it seems very nebulous when he might come back. I think Fletcher at full health is probably the best back in the ACC. So, like, that is a significant problem if he's not there. To go out and get a guy the quality Martinez is a big time upgrade, not over Fletcher, but over the drop off from Fletcher to whomever else, because they had Parrish leave. They were literally running a tight end at running back in part of spring.
I don't disagree. It's an upgrade over what they have, but I think Damian Martinez is more recognizable name than like giant upgrade. I do think he's a good player. I think he's a solid player, and I think he's going to be a good starter for them, filling in and running the role. But I also, like, the more I watched Oregon State last year, just like that offensive line was phenomenal. And Damian Martinez is good. Again, I'm not dissing him, but he was running behind a phenomenal offensive line. So it's not like he's going to show up and be like a Heisman candidate at Miami. He's going to be a good player for the Hurricanes and something they needed. So I'd say, yeah, it's a win for them, but I don't think that's like a huge win.
It's not
I think
the
that's
biggest
fair. It was
win.
more based on need than
Yeah.
It's not the biggest win. I mean, Cam Ward's not even the biggest win for the Hurricanes. It's the Cavender twins coming back. Talk about retention, getting them to come out of retirement and back from TCU. That's the biggest offseason move for the Canes.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
All right,
back.
we'll hit it. We're gonna hit a break after this, but a little bit of if I was to shout out the Eye on College Basketball Podcast, a little bit of a trivia time here. When was the last season with a 1,000-yard rusher for the Miami Hurricanes?
Jeez.
You want to take a guess?
I mean, was it Duke Johnson?
No,
2008.
we've had one since then,
Okay.
Oh,
but not that far. Duke's last year was 2014, and in his final year, he ran for 1,600 yards. He
Yeah.
also just retired recently.
Yeah.
So, congrats to
Who was it?
people. All right, you ready? Give up.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're more recent than 16?
Oh,
Um,
crap. Did I just give the answer? No, 14 was Duke Johnson. 16 is the last 1,000-yard rusher. Okay.
Oh, well, then 2016 is my
Yeah,
answer.
2016.
Yeah, it was 2016 was the year.
Mark Walton.
There we go.
Wow.
So that means that
Legend.
in the 7 seasons since then, there have been 0 1,000-yard rushers for the Miami Hurricanes. When I was thinking about Damian Martinez, I immediately said, when's the last time they've had like a really
workhorse kind
good, workhorse kind of running back? We'll see if Damian Martinez is going to snap that streak of 7 seasons.
That
with
is
no
way too
1,000-yard
long for
rusher.
Miami not to have a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah.
Well,
Like when you think of the lineage that they've had at that position over the years, that is way too long.
My thoughts exactly.
What did Fletcher go for last year?
Let's see. Last year, Fletcher had 514. Parrish had 625. So, I mean, if you combine them together, that's 1,000. But that's not what the question was. All right. So coming up on the other side, more of our takeaways, including a little bit of Mythbusters, like our Group of 5 programs really getting crushed by the portal, and what we should take away from a portal season that was not as busy as some expected. All that and more next.
And they're starting to get in the groove. So impressive.
Block your schedules. Aces are coming to CBS Sports Network.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast as we continue to wrap up the spring transfer portal window. But this is something that you've been discussing for a little while, just as we were leading into the portal cycle, and then also now finally starting to get a sense of what did or didn't happen. Not great for our business, right? It's a funny thing where it's like bad for business, good for the sport. There have been some things where I've been like, this is bad for the sport, but it's good for business. Like college football playoff expansion probably falls into that boat. So what do you sense about sort of the larger implications of this past spring portal cycle?
I think the fact that the portal cycle was so weak is reflective of two things. One, I thought the portal cycle in the winter window was pretty decent. And two, so a lot of the talent had already got picked over. Two, I mean, shout out to most of the collectives and fan bases out there, even though it's kind of preposterous that the fan bases should have to pay to keep their players. It is kind of the requirement now. And it looks like a lot of schools, did so. And generally, it's going to be cheaper to keep your own player than it's going to be to go out and acquire somebody. So it is kind of better business. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Like if you have a guy, he's in-house, you like him, I think a lot of schools paid up and they kept them in-house, and I don't know that was like predicted or anticipated for everybody. And we really didn't know what to expect because of the court ruling. And we had a flood of guys who could have transferred for a second time because now you have the unlimited transfers. And largely we didn't see that a whole lot. Like this was a this was a real bummer of a window in terms of talent, but I'm happy for a lot of fan bases out there that did not get picked over. Like if you're an Arizona fan today, you kept McMillan, right? You kept your quarterback. Like you lost a couple guys, but you kept Sicario Davis, right? I mean, these are big time keeps. So I'm happy about it.
And plus, now that we're paying the players for the schools, they'll surely bring tuition down.
Can I go tinfoil hat on this?
Yes, please.
Okay. So is it possible that coaching staffs either working in cahoots with the collectives or somehow through that chain wanted to drum up anxiety as a fundraising tactic in the same way that Ohio State sent the NIL email right after the loss to Michigan, which has helped with, getting guys to stay and also putting together a big splashy portal class that it would help with the roster retention side of things for the coaching staffs to tell the collectives and then the collectives to tell the donors, like, guys, if you don't give right now, our whole roster is going to be rated. This is about to be wild, wild west out here. I mean, it is going to be kill or be killed. Like, is it possible? And I'm admitting I am tinfoil hatting this, but do you think that was just all part of a big scheme to help raise funds?
First of all, I love when people say cahoots. Thank you for it. Like we should keep using that. Second of all, are you saying that Pate was like used by coaches and to get the word out there?
No, I think it would be a good fundraising tactic. I mean, that's
what I'm saying. Like poor Pate was just like Josh had to put a clown nose on it on his own show and admit he was wrong. And you're saying that they did that to him just to help themselves?
I don't know.
That's diabolical. That's beautiful. I love that.
I'm just taking lessons that I've seen from like politics, political fundraising. Let's scare you into thinking that if you don't give us money, your
immigrants are going to take our players.
To end. And for a college football fan, your world ending is you losing one of the best players on the team, or at least that's the way it's going to feel in late April and early May. So do you think there was some sort of, diabolical scheme there?
Yes,
I think the fear was genuine.
Okay, that was it.
Yes.
All right. Okay,
I think they absolutely. I don't think they used Pate to do so. I think. I mean, obviously, I think he was talking to some guys who really felt like it was going to be crazy. I think a lot of coaches were worried that it was going to be crazy. We didn't see a lot of evidence that it was crazy because a lot of people stepped up. Had there not been that fear from the coaches, maybe the fundraising doesn't go quite as well. And maybe it is a little bit crazier if schools, didn't hold serve. Like I know for a fact, like Miami kept guys that people were going after. I know Florida did. I know Florida State did. Just from talking to different recruiting guys I saw this weekend. Like there were some real poaching efforts out there, and so I think a lot of schools kept guys, not even like that jumped in the portal and came back, but like dudes who just never entered.
Coaches, by and large, are very Chicken Little-ish.
Oh yeah,
no doubt. Yes.
They are alarmist to an alarming degree. It's like every little change is like, oh my God, this is going to be the worst, whatever in the history of the world. But I love that theory though, Chip. You know what? It probably was natural, but I'd rather pretend there's like a cabal of coaches meeting in like a mountain layer during the offseason. Like, what can we do to keep our players and get more money this year?
Yeah, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to tell everybody that this is of dire need to your existence as a college football fan. Let's get this money up so that we can keep this team together.
There is no open window again until the season starts, is there?
That is correct.
All right. Well, then, Bud, that offensive lineman, J.C. Davis, we were talking about last week for Illinois. Thank you for that, because he is going to be first team all Big Ten at left tackle.
That's right. I forgot. Bud had a good read on a guy, and Tom told him to keep his mouth shut.
Yeah. I mean, Miami kept Okunlola. Florida State kept all their offensive linemen that people tried to poach. There was a lot of different guys out there that I think were getting talked to. But which is just kind of how this works. You back channel everything.
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch J.C. Davis.
Who runs Stats Bomb?
Ted Knutson and
it was the Stats Bomb. I remember because I wrote about Joe Alt, or I said something about Joe Alt in the show, and Stats Bomb sent me like one of their radar charts. And you know what the closest comp to Joe Alt was? JC Davis. So, yeah, I think Illinois is pretty happy with what they landed there from New Mexico. Now, of course, it's going to be a step up in caliber of player he's facing, but they all seem pretty confident he'll be just fine.
He played well against A&M, right?
Yeah.
Last year. Yeah, that was
But to go a little bit Mythbusters on this, I wanted to part of the just overall I forgot we got Mythbusters.
the Easter eggs are amazing.
I forgot about that. I feel good because somebody spent time to make that. We've only used it like twice.
Hey, listen. Shout out to Andy. He
Andy.
got us locked and loaded. Oh my gosh, in this NIL transfer portal world, it's impossible to be in the group of five. And there are uphill battles in terms of revenue that are coming to light. I mean, Bud, did you get a sense from all the player movement that, group of five programs are just getting absolutely cooked out here?
Certainly there are some who got picked over. I think that the MAC got more rated this year than it did last year. And I think that's a direct correlation to the MAC having like more top 100 picks than all the other G5 leagues combined, which tells me that the other G5 leagues got picked over pretty hard last year. And a lot of folks didn't bother messing with guys from the MAC in a couple of circumstances. So, I mean, some of these MAC schools are just not going to have, the NIL funds to hold on to big time guys. Also, can we? Well, I mean, it's the dead of the offseason. We can get kind of nerdy here for a second.
Yeah,
I do think there's a real sweet spot to hit as a coach at the G5 recruiting, and some of these guys. And look, I'm not a coach. Everybody can do what they want to do, but some of these guys who brag about the upside level of the player that they're signing at the G5, I listen to them, and in my head, I'm like, this is not optimal because this guy is going to your school at the low G5 level, but yet he has big time upside. That means he's very raw. And you are going to put the sweat equity into developing that player. And he's probably not going to be all that great while he's on your roster. And the second that he shows any kind of actual flash to play at the level that you think his ceiling is, he's gone. If I'm coaching the G5 and I'm trying to win, I want a bunch of like knee biters. Okay. Give me all these 5'10" D tackles who are just a pain in the ass to block. And you might say, well, that's going to get overwhelmed. Like, by who? Everybody you have at the G5 level who has like legitimate P5 size and can move a little bit is gone. And that's also how you get old, stay old, how you actually build chemistry at that G5 level. So I get the dudes who can play ball, ignore the measurables. I really think is the right way to play and build at the G5 right now. But
get them gritty grinders.
Yes. I mean, seriously. Like, how did Troy keep their roster together last year? I mean, they had some good culture, but a lot of those dudes just they don't have the measurables to go play P5. I mean, Carlton Marshall ran damn near a 5-second 40, the NCAA leading tackler of all time at his pro day, right? I mean, and he was tiny. So I think, I think ignoring the measurables, just getting the guys who've proven they can play will help you stay old.
The JT in the tailgate pointing out that the Sun Belt was surprisingly stable. We got some good research from Ryan McGrady at 24/7 Sports that's featured on CBSSports.com right now. So the schools that have lost the most transfers to Power 4 conferences: New Mexico State with 13, James Madison with 12, San Diego State with 10. You know what that is? Coaching change. That is not that different from what you would see at a power conference. On the other hand, you've got schools like Charlotte, North Texas, Marshall, ECU, and Nevada that are actually taking some of those step down players. Those are programs that have actually been getting players from power conferences. The overall look at the entire data set seems to suggest that, yes, there are going to be players like a Penny Boone, right? Like there are going to be players that are jumping up, but I don't know if this is because we already had a couple, windows of this, or, where we are in terms of just the transfer cycle. But this is not something that suggests that all group of 5 coaches have to deal with getting rated every single time you have a good season. And maybe that's evaluation, maybe it's not, but it definitely flies in the face of what I think was sort of sold to us in terms of the transfer portal and its impact on, the different levels within the FBS.
It is and it isn't. Like it's an interesting article that Ryan wrote, and if you should go to cbssports.com and read it. But it's also the quantity versus the quality aspect, because Alabama's not going to a G5 school for their third string defensive tackle who's struggling to break through on the depth chart. They're going for, oh, that's the best player on your team, I'm going to take him. Maybe you can take my third string defensive tackle. Like, that's the way it works. So it's like overall raw numbers, more power 4 players are going to G5 than the other way around, but the production and the quality of player is vastly tilted in the power 5's direction. And then you also mentioned like the James Madison and the Charlotte and that kind of, or not Charlotte, but
San Diego State, James Madison, and the top one
New
was
Mexico State.
New Mexico State.
Leaving. Yeah. It's there's a lot of like college. It reminds me of college basketball in a sense that you're seeing now when some of these G5 coaches move up to a power 4 job. They're bringing half their roster with them because they can. And even Kalen DeBoer did it, going from Washington to Alabama. Like, most of his dudes went to the NFL, but the guys who were quality players who weren't going to the NFL came with him to Tuscaloosa. Kurt Signetti's brought a whole bunch of Dukes with him to, Bloomington for Indiana. Jerry Kill left, and those guys just kind of spread because he's now.
Well, some of them went to Vanderbilt, and then
some
he
of
went
them were at
Vandy.
Vandy. Yeah, so it's that kind of so it's always going to be a little situation specific. But if you look, like, no G5 teams are poaching a starter from a Power 5 team at any point in the near future. Like, that's not to say there won't be an outlier at some point, but it's just the rule is you're not going to see that.
Any other big takeaways from the portal window?
Do we think that this will remain the same pattern next year?
I don't know. It's hard to say. We've got such a limited sample size with it. I don't think it's going to be this way every year. Like, I think that every once in a while, every few years, we're going to have just like an insane window where we're going to see big names going, because I think, especially as we move more towards this kind of salary employee role where there's going to be a salary cap or whatever the hell we're going to call it, you're going to see movement just financially from players who can get a better deal somewhere else because there's more money available somewhere else. But I don't think you're going to typically see Wild West, nor do I think you're going to see tumbleweeds.
Coaching changes are always going to keep this.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge factor in all of it.
Yeah, and as we continue, we talked about Kirby at the beginning of the show. As we continue to see the coaching salaries spike or go up, then the stakes are higher, and guess what? Coaches are going to get fired. And then we're going to have more movement and more transfers along the way. Do you think that the 2 windows is a good system?
No thoughts.
I mean, in theory, I understand in theory because it gives you an opportunity to go elsewhere if you don't win a job in spring camp.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't know. I have kind of mixed thoughts on it.
As a fan, I would be happy with the 2 windows simply because I want to be able to relax. I don't want to be waking up every day just terrified that one of my best players is going to be like, I'm going to get that notification on my phone, like starting QB enters transfer portal. Like, I would just like, and I'm sure coaches feel the exact same way, but just as a fan, I'm like, yeah, I'd like to just move on now that, like, that's why I was asking earlier, is the portal done until the season starts? Because I just want to move on and get ready for the season. And now I feel like I can actually start doing that.
I would like to go spring only, honestly, and eliminate the December window. I think that would place a greater emphasis on high school recruiting, and then it gives everybody more opportunities to compete and win jobs in the in spring ball. It also makes the bowl games and the playoff and just everything a little bit less chaotic. It makes coaching hot seat season slightly better, in my opinion, if you don't have to worry about your entire roster leaving. I mean, hell, guys, we heard about certain like really good coaches who took like 3 in-home visits.
Mm-hmm.
because they were so worried about keeping their roster together. You know,
would you still have the 30-day opportunity for a coaching change?
Well, I think if you eliminate the December window and you just go spring only,
You have to keep it.
No, you wouldn't need it, because if nobody has an opportunity just to transfer it, post December anyway, then it basically just, hey, your window is spring. If you have a post spring coaching change, then obviously yes. Like if somebody pulls what Bob Stoops did and decides to retire and just give the job to Lincoln Riley, then I think it should be open season.
If we only had one window, and that one window was after spring ball, I think you would have to allow a player whose coach gets fired or leaves in December to be able to go and enroll somewhere else and play spring ball somewhere else.
I mean, I understand that, but like, are they being? I guess they actually really could argue they're being harmed by not having an ability to go win a job at their new school,
right?
Because that's not who they signed up to play for. Yeah,
right. So it would be like there's no official window, but then if your coach leaves, all of a sudden it's like that would be even more confusing.
Would they be able to do a window just for teams whose players have moved, like head coaching changes?
I think that just would happen naturally, because if I remember the rule correctly, it's a 30-day thing that opens up. So portal for everybody can be in April, and then the coaching change is just sort of like a sliding scale that probably is going to begin on the first weekend in December and last until mid-January.
What if when you sign your letter of intent, you're locked in for 10 years? Just think about it.
I don't like that.
Just think about it.
I don't want to. Do you think that the Players Association, but I'm not going to put you on the spot for billable hours, but there's that the proposal right now where they are asking for a special exemption so that college athletes can collectively bargain without being determined to be employees. I love the way that your eyebrows just went. So how's that strategy gonna play out?
All right, completely off the cuff, because I literally just saw this like 5 minutes before we went on the air. Is this an attempt by this one organizing group to try to
win the race and be the PA?
Yeah. That's my opinion as well. I don't think that's going to work. However, I'm also the opinion that a players union is going to suck, because everybody by nature, unless the course decide you have unlimited eligibility, is time limited. So you're not strike proof, but like, I mean, are you really going to give up one of your maximum 4 legitimate earning years? It's unlikely. So this has kind of always been my thing of like, just go to collective bargaining with these guys. You're going to whip them at the table. Like, what are you really that scared of? Like, this players union, regardless of who runs it, I think is going to suck compared to like baseball's union or NFL's union. Those guys are not time limited.
Yeah.
I am fascinated to learn about
I can't wait until it's like 2028. We're doing the show and we're doing like entire episodes on the looming expiration of the CBA. Will there be a lockout in 2029? Tune in Monday. We're going to break it down.
My hunch was much like when NIL went legal and there was a big race to see who was going to be the big NIL agent, and then actual agent stepped in and was like, I'm sorry, marketing deals pay what? Okay. Like, and they muscled everybody else out of the way. It's like right now there's probably a race to see who can be the predominant organizer among college athletes.
If the players go on strike one day and they do like a sit-in, will they demand that the school feeds them?
No. They will.
That would be ludicrous, right?
No, they would make the donors do it.
Oh, okay. They would make the fans do it.
Yeah, they'd make the fans. That's what I mean. It would be the fans who would have to contribute it, because that's what we know ultimately.
Just a dude in face paint showing up with like a big old bag of McDonald's. Here you go, boys.
Oh, that's Jeremy Pruitt. He's right there. Yeah, he's already done that. Man's got to show cause for taking care of that. It's just a McDonald's bag. Come on. All right, I like Tom said, and I don't have an offensive lineman that I had necessarily jumped on, but I am glad that we can now begin the process of really moving forward. Rosters are mostly set. We mentioned names like Tyler Barron, Cormani McLean. There are players out there who still need to make their decisions, but we are finally starting to get a good idea of that. Coming up on Wednesday, as we continue to work towards the unveiling of our coach ranking ballots and the CBS Sports coach rankings, that will be next week. How about some grades or some analysis for year one of the last hiring cycle? So everybody that was hired in the 22-23 cycle, they've had one season to go. How did it meet or fail to meet expectations? What does the outlook look like moving forward? Again, we are reviewing year one for the 22-23 hires. Come and hang out on Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time for that. And you can follow him on Twitter at BudElliott3. You can follow him at Tom Fornelli. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Love you, Uncle John and Aunt Jane.